During the 2018 border protests or the Great March of Return, which were recognized by human rights organizations as being overwhelmingly peaceful.
Overwhelmingly peaceful. Just as a quick thing, because people love to talk about the Great March of Return, the peaceful March of Return. First of all, you should ask them, where was the march to? The Great March of Return was supposed to be marching through the barricade back into Israel proper. That's where they were supposed to be marching to, okay? You can argue that some of the deaths here were unjustified, which I think is probably fair to say, for sure. To characterize this as just it was a mostly wholly peaceful event, that's not true. Hamas had literally gotten in on this, I think, by day one. Also, hold on, just as a quick thing, because this is going to be me countering a whole bunch of retarded pro-Palestinian propaganda. The IDF have done bad things. There have been soldiers that have been doing bad things, and even absent bad things, there's been times where the IDF has moved with such speed and recklessness that it amounts to bad things. A good example of this is the bombing of those WCK trucks. Like I think 3 or 4 of them, like in a row, like boom, boom, boom. So I'm not here to say that the IDF operates perfectly, but the one-sided summaries of this conflict are actually so fucking retarded. All of this is like the peaceful Great March of Return. Remember this, okay? This is all the peaceful Great March of Return. One of the reasons why they're setting these tires on fire, so that they can provide a smokescreen cover, so that they can run up and cut the fence, is so that they can run across the fence and they can plant IEDs on the other side to kill either civilians or soldiers that are outside of the fence for the Gaza Strip. This is the peaceful Great March of Return, okay? After they've set enough tires on fire, they've cut through the fence, and the goal is to get outside and then to plant the IEDs that they have in the ground. Sorry, hold on. I just want to remind you of what this is, by the way, and how white people in the West who don't give a fuck about any of these people present this.
During the 2018 border protests or the Great March of Return, which were recognized by human rights organizations as being overwhelmingly peaceful, Israel fired on the peaceful crowds with sniper rifles, injuring thousands and killing hundreds.
This is the peaceful Great March of Return, just to remind you. This is where they're getting over the fence to go and plant IEDs on the other side. Who organized this thing? The concept started when, I believe it was a Palestinian, Ahmed Abu Artima. He made a Facebook post that started the idea. What if 200,000 demonstrators went out in a peaceful march, stormed the barbed wire east of Gaza, and entered our occupied territories a few kilometers away into Israel proper, waving Palestinian flags and keys of return accompanied by international media? Then they set up tents inside and established a city there. Let's call it Bab al-Shams City, and thousands of Palestinians inside joined them, insisting on remaining there peacefully without using any form of violence. So the very first inception of this idea was to break through the border wall and do it. But the problem is that almost immediately Hamas seized on this idea and they wanted to weaponize it and use it for their own purposes, basically. Early on, you saw Sinwar, who was like the Hamas leader of the Gaza Strip. You see him walking around with crowds and talking to people. There were reports of bus drivers who were complaining that they were being forced to take Hamas operatives basically up to the border, like people to fight. They said they would imprison us. This is how Hamas threatens the protesters' drivers. As part of the March of Return campaign, the terrorist organization is forcing bus company owners to lead protesters to the fence. That means threats, arrests, and setting Hamas drivers to take over the buses. Coordinator of government activities in the territories. Hamas is carrying out terror against its own people. Usually when the evidence is too much, though, people will just say, oh no, they're lying. Or it's like faked or whatever, but I mean,